during what is Neurodiversity Week for this important discussion on, as the slide says, creating a neurodiversity-safe space. At UK Hospitality, we're passionate about promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have an EDI group. It's made up of members from across the industry who are committed to sort of fostering environments that are inclusive and open to both the sector's workforce and its customers. If you'd like more information on the EDI group, you can get in touch with us at info@ukhospitality.org.uk, and you can sort of join that group and sort of partake in some of the discussions that we're having. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Emma Robinson, Head of Onboarding UK at Mapal, and Amanda Rosewell, Sendco at HIT Training. Today we aim to explore neurodiversity in the workplace, discuss strategies to create inclusive environments, and how technology can be used to support that. Shortly, I'm going to be handing over to Emma from Mapal, who will discuss how its technology helps businesses foster inclusive environments. We'll then hear from Amanda, who will explain HIT Training's role in supporting neurodiverse professionals in the hospitality sector. And we'll then have a short discussion between me, Emma, and Amanda. And finally, we'll then pose some questions from you to the panelists. So you'll see at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A function. So please do type any questions that you have in that box, and we'll have some time at the end to sort of go through them and come back to you. If we don't have enough time for questions, we'll sort of commit to making sure that we give written responses at a later date as soon as possible. And then the very final thing from me is that I want to note that this webinar is being recorded, so that's just for future reference, and it will be available on our website afterwards, so you can share with colleagues and teams. So now I'll hand over to Emma from Mapal.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me this morning. Really excited to dive into this topic. So yeah, just to give you a little bit of information around the initiatives that we do in Mapal Group around the neurodiversity topic is our main focus is having options for everyone's learning preference. So we have a number of different tools within our system, and it's ensuring that there's multiple options within those different tools. So for example, with our modules, we want to ensure that everyone is getting the same training, so they're all, they feel included and they don't feel like they're different from anyone else. But within that training, there's different options for how they take in that training, whether it be that they're watching a video or having a voiceover, or whether they prefer to read through content. We have gamified pieces within our modules. So it can be a lot more interactive. So again, it's including everyone in the same learning, but they can choose their preference for how they take that learning in. We also have a lot of bite-sized training. So for people who like snappy training, especially working in hospitality, it's super fast-paced. People don't have a lot of time on their hands. So having training that's under kind of 5 minutes that they can go into the system and still take in all of the necessary training that they need, but in that quicker and smaller capacity. Again, it's just providing as many options as possible. And again, people feeling really comfortable that they're getting as much as the next person, but just maybe in a slightly different way. On top of that, then, how we try to foster that internally is that we actually utilize our own system for our own internal training. So we really believe in our system, and we have, a huge team on hand, not only in the UK, but in our other regions. And we're all very different in our own ways, and we all take in training in our own ways. So being able to utilize our own system and the way that we've created our system to be has really allowed us to grow that awareness of neurodiversity internally, but also all of us to learn a lot more about it. Especially for myself being in onboarding and for my team, that's something that was really important for us, because when customers come on to implement their new system, we are the experts. So having all of that information ourselves, but also utilizing our own system internally allows us to give our customers the support on how to implement a system like that to your team and how to create different learning structures for all of the different preferences you may have, and giving them all of those recommendations. And it just means that it'll be a successful launch and really, really hit well with everyone. So they're all of the different things that we really try to do internally ourselves and also to give to our customers. Um, I think as well, we've had some really great events that we've hosted around the neurodiversity topic that has also really enlightened us and given us so much more information about neurodiversity, and being able to share that with people as well, is just us all coming together and growing that awareness. So some of the events that we've had is we've had an interview with Dr. Divya, and she is a neurodiversity specialist. So she really dug deep into the science behind it and really what it means to truly be neurodiverse. And I think that opened everyone's eyes to learning a lot more about really and truly what it is. In addition, we had an event with Springboard, and Dorothea Jones, who has her own neurodiversity company. And we got to see a couple of different aspects within that event. So Dorothea, she went through very much what is neurodiversity, and really give us a good insight into that. And then following from herself, we had a speaker who is neurodiverse themselves, who has worked with Springboard and has done their training program, and hearing the success of how that program went for them, and that they were able to apply for a job in hospitality and they got that job, was such a lovely story to listen to. And then Springboard went into a little bit more detail about that training program, what their initiatives were, how they went about setting all of that up. So we really got to see three different sides with this event. But I think the key takeaways from these events that we've been doing is just all about open communication, building that safe space within your business. But I think the key part to all of that is management training and ensuring that we are providing our managers with sufficient training on neurodiversity, making them aware, and ensuring that they have all the tools that they need to support and guide their teams, and guide everyone within their team, even if people aren't neurodiverse. You want to make sure that everyone is included and that there is something for everyone. So I think that's really at the forefront and really what we took from these events. And we do have an event coming up soon. So you can find all the information for these events and notes, and the interviews, the written interviews as well, on our website. And coming up soon, we are going to be meeting with Trustee ADHD and also the founder from Well and Being. And they're going to do some top tips and some exercises about how you can be more inclusive within the workplace. So hopefully that will be really, really exciting interview to have with them. So you can find more information about that on our website. But definitely having these events in place has really grown the awareness for us as a company, but definitely for me and as an individual, it has really grown my knowledge about neurodiversity, and I feel a lot more equipped to be that support for our customers when they're implementing our systems. That's all for me for now.
Thanks, Emma. Amanda?
Hello everybody, my name is Amanda Rosewell and I'm the Senko at HIT Training. Just briefly a little bit about me in a nutshell. I was a special needs coordinator in schools, worked in schools for 30 years, and one thing that I always found frustrating was learners who had neurodiversity, special educational needs, especially in the sixth form. If they had education, health and care plans, their only destination would be to the local college. Go to the local college, spend 2 years at the local college doing the same things. This is how you put your washing in, this is how you get on a bus, this is how you write a CV, with no real avenue into work. And 4 years ago, I came to work for HIT Training and I've never been happier, because I see a lot of people getting into work, totally different atmosphere to being in schools or college, and people absolutely thriving. So, HIT's role. I strongly believe that I am the only special educational needs coordinator who's got a master's in diversity, which is dyslexia, dyscalculia, in our arena. And that enables HIT training to early identify people. That is the key thing. It's early identification. So all our team are trained, sales team going out into the workplaces before even learners are signed up, asking if the learners have got any special educational needs, neurodiversity, things that we need to be aware of. So that's one of the key things that HIT training does. Then the learners are referred to me if they've got documents to send over, whether it be education, health and care plans, which in old money used to be called statements of educational special need, whether they are ADHD reports, autism reports, anything like that. Any paperwork is sent over so I can have a good read through, because people would have gone through a really detailed assessment to get those reports done. So it's important for me to read those. If learners are struggling with their English and maths, perhaps they've left school early, perhaps they never even completed school, perhaps they're of an older age group where they've hopped from one practical job to the other, which they absolutely thrive in, but are really worried about the academic work that they're going to have to put into an apprenticeship. That is probably because they've got undiagnosed dyslexia. Dyslexia is really, really common. I don't know whether you noticed that a couple of weeks ago, Jamie Oliver was in the Houses of Parliament talking to MPs there about the need to look into early identification of dyslexia, he himself being dyslexic. And what he said was 25% of the population have got a learning difficulty, whether it's regarding autism, neurodiversity, dyslexia, 25%. And what he said was, if he was in business and ignored 25% of his customers, he'd be out of business. And I think that we've got to look at this in the same way. It's in the news today, again, about Get Britain working again and getting people back into work and maybe not stopping their PIP payments while they test jobs out. All of that is positive because people thrive in work. Scope, the charity to do with disabilities, have done research and they have said that learners who have disabilities take the least time off sick and are the most loyal workers. It's been researched. So, just have a little think about that. I've got one slide to share, if I may. It's called a Working With Me slide. So if you Google Working With Me or the Manual of Me, you'll come up with loads and loads of information, but this is the sort of thing that you could do tomorrow with everybody on your workforce. There's a saying which is, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Everybody is different. So don't feel like you need to have a degree in special needs or be equipped with all sorts of information in order to make your workers more comfortable in the workplace. It's just conversation and listening. Okay, don't come in with any conversations with any preconceived ideas because your niece might be autistic and you know all about it through that, because people are so different. But this little image here is just something which, if the apprentice or worker wants to be shared, this is something that can be just shared across the workplace, stuck on the fridge, stuck on a notice board or whatever. There's another key phrase, which is nothing about me without me. So don't go making these without talking to, in this case, Stephen. Okay. Don't do things behind people's backs. You've got to include the learner or the person at your work with these conversations. But you can just see how the images on there convey all that information really quickly. You can see that Stephen doesn't like to talk about politics. You can see his times of work, you can see what he likes, you can see what he doesn't like. Lovely, thank you. That slide can come off now. But yeah, if you Google working with me document, you'll get loads of information about it. So it's tailoring programs. And what HIT training manages to do is early identification, as I said before. So we have got a lot of companies who have, for the first time, employed apprentices who've got special educational needs. And through the ESFA funding, we've not only been able to supply additional learning support, but exceptional learning support. And in some cases, we've even advised on access to work, which goes down the council route of funding. But if people need a whole bespoke type of support to get them into work, that can be done as well, and we can advise on that. Some success stories. When I assess people and I have a little chat to them about, do you think that you might have been dyslexic? Is that why you think you struggled at work? The amount of people I have had in floods of tears on the other end of a Zoom saying that I'm the first person that's ever explained it to them. Because it doesn't mean you're thick. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you can't achieve. It's just that your brain processes in a different way. I myself would need 25% extra time in my exams if I was assessed, because I'm a visual learner. I need a to-do list, I need a tick list, I need a schedule, I need a calendar. All of that visual, I am absolutely fine, but I can't maintain all that in my brain whilst doing all my other stuff. That's all it means. 25% of the population would need 25% extra time in their exams, which means that daily they are struggling with an extra cognitive load to get things done. Give me a tick list, give me a calendar, give me a to-do list, give me time to write things down. Bob's your uncle, I'm absolutely fine. We have got learners who have got Down syndrome completing production chef, and they are probably going to stay with us and do commis chef after that. We've been able to sort out the reasonable adjustments for all of those learners. We have had learners with epilepsy in kitchens who aren't allowed to taste different kinds of food, and we've worked with particularly Adam Brooks Hospital on that. It's basically just stopping and thinking what can be done to make these people's workplaces and lives successful. And that is the social model of disability that we've all got to be thinking about. It's not the person who's neurodiverse, who's disabled, that's got the problem. If we make things easier and if we give access to different things, well, it just takes away those barriers. Okay. I could probably talk for another 3/4 of an hour or more on this, but the best thing to do is to wind up now and allow questions to come in. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. That's really great overview there of HIT training's work and your work supporting that as well. Really helpful. So yeah, as I said at the start, there's a Q&A function at the bottom, so please do get your questions in there, and we'll have some time towards the end to sort of turn to those and answer any questions you have related to your business and such. So. But first, I'm just going to have a bit of a discussion with Emma and Amanda. First, I suppose a question maybe targeted towards Emma, but also Amanda, please do come in. Sort of the role of technology in supporting more inclusive environments for neurodiverse employees and customers. How important do you think that is? What role does technology play? Can you tell us more about Mapel's sort of technology as well that will be insightful for people on the call?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're in the day and age now where digitizing everything is becoming more and more prominent. And I think we really need to embrace it. And that's very much what we have done because we are a digital platform. We wanted to ensure, as I mentioned before, that all of our tools are giving many different options for everyone's preferences. And that's not just towards learning. I know I touched a little bit earlier about how we program all of our learning to be very inclusive. But in addition, we have some other parts of our system, and actually very much to your point, Amanda, and how I work myself is things like checklists. And working in hospitality, something that we all have, and I've worked in hospitality myself, is your daily checklists that you need to complete. And we have a part of our system called compliance where you can build your bespoke templates for your checklists. And it is a simple list on your app where you check off your list as you go throughout the day, completing those tasks. And actually, the speaker that we had from Springboard, who is neurodiverse themselves, actually shouted out that piece of material that we have, and found that really, really helpful for them because that is a preference for them. They like working with checklists, they like it to be very visual, and they just felt like they could be so organized and there was less stress about getting all of their tasks done for the day. So it was really nice to hear that feedback. And in addition as well, I think, communication can be difficult as well for a lot of people. So with our communication tool, it's giving them the option to have another way of communicating. So you might have someone who feels really confident to go up in person to their manager or colleague and ask a question, or they want to have a discussion about something. And that might be one person's preference. But without having another option, a lot of people might sit back and not ask those really vital questions that they want to ask, or have those discussions that they want to have, because that's not their preference and that's not where they feel confident. But within our tool, we can have chat functionality, so they can have conversations with their colleagues. They can have conversations in a group of people, if that's where they feel more confident talking in a group setting, or if they want to send a message to their manager. It's having the option to have other means of communicating with your teams, or just feeling like you can get involved with everyone that meets your preference. And we also have posts and publications that you can have within that area of the system. So again, posting successes, posting updates, liking them, commenting on them, really getting involved as a team. And again, just using the digital side of systems to give those options. Again, not everyone feels confident in person, but I think that's very much where digitizing things and having different platforms really ticks all the boxes and means that your team, as a wide team, have all of the different preferences that will suit them. And it hopefully makes everyone feel like they're a full team and that they can get involved and that they don't ever have to be left out.
Thanks, Emma. That's really interesting. Amanda, do you have anything to say on sort of the role of technology?
Yes, technology is fantastic for people who have got dyslexia. It's really, really difficult to teach an adult with severe dyslexia how to read and spell, and it's not going to be done by spelling list. You have to take someone right back to Key Stage 1 phonics and start from there and build it up. And if they've missed that, and some young people have missed that because of COVID, so they're going to get a gap and come through with more pronounced dyslexia, that's going to become apparent. Nobody thinks twice about talking to Alexa and getting an answer from Alexa. Nobody thinks twice about pressing Siri and getting an answer verbally. And there are all sorts of computer programs free now. You used to have to pay for Drag and Dictate and things like that run behind programs where you can talk into a computer, the computer writes for you, where you can highlight a block of text and the computer will read it out to you. iPhones are great with accessibility settings, and a lot of learners who are neurodiverse have got that going already. Younger people tend to be more confident with it than older people, but yes, we encourage technology all of the time.
Thanks, Amanda. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how HIT training sort of works with different businesses in the sector to develop sort of tailored training programs around in this space.
So I will use as an example the most acute identified people with neurodiversity and special educational needs, and they will have something which is called an education, health and care plan. But We're also finding learners that should have had an education, health and care plan, but they never got one. And if you're aware of the news, you're aware about the funding difficulties with that, and it's going to become more and more of an issue. So if someone starts at a company, starts with an apprenticeship with an education, health and care plan, we will have introductory work, as I said before, working out the amount of additional learning support they're going to need, whether it's just going to be an extra meeting each month, more face-to-face, WhatsApp reminders, all the way through to access to work for something that might be, really acute. Once we've met with the learner and the manager and talked all that through, the apprenticeship starts. Then after 3 months, because usually 3 months we think that's a good enough time for things to settle down, we will hold the annual review for the EHCP. And if it is an EHCP and the learner's under 25, there will be the local authority there as well, where we discuss what is going well and what we could do better, and work through those issues. And even when I'm wearing green today, I tend to have a bit of a white coat syndrome, where people tell me things that they probably wouldn't be comfortable telling their manager or their VT about, because, I'm independent of it all. From that, we can improve the plan. So that's going back to the old acronym for special educational needs, which is assess, plan, do, review. And then you go back, assess, plan, do, review. So you're constantly monitoring. There are so many things that we can do to tailor the programs. Some people have all of their meetings face to face. Some people have difficulties with memory. And so when it comes to endpoint assessment, we work with the endpoint assessment organisation to say, please, let's not have this across the table. Please, can the learner walk around the kitchen and actually pick up and tell you and show you the things that they're working with, because that gets them talking and it sparks the conversation. So it's really down to the individual, listening to the individual, working through those problems each by each. But so that is the most acute, but it goes down into the relationship with the vocational trainer, the relationship with the manager, whether I need to be brought in or not. Because sometimes it's just a sitting down, having a good conversation and creating one of those working with me documents that will iron out any issues and make their learning more tailored.
Thanks, Amanda. And then just obviously on the call, we'll have businesses from sort of different sizes and with sort of in different sort of journeys on their sort of in this space, and some with more developed programs than others. What is the sort of actionable next steps that all businesses can be taking at the very start of their journey in this space to sort of make the environment more inclusive. Emma, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think honestly, start small. I think building awareness internally, and spreading around information so people can learn a little bit more about the topic, whether that be hosting events if you can, or sending teams to go and join events about neurodiversity, and just bit by bit getting teams a bit more educated around the topic. I think that's always a really great first step. And then embracing it as a business, and seeing what you can do. And as I said before, it really starts with management and providing training to managers, and whether that be you send them on some courses to learn a little bit more how to deal with neurodiverse staff members. I think it can also be quite hard because not everyone has been diagnosed. So it is just treating everyone the same, but having it in the back of your mind that they might work a little bit differently. They might have different needs, and how can you create an environment as a manager? And I think simply having team meetings and team gatherings in a group environment where you bring the topic of conversation about neurodiversity and talk about working together as a team, asking people to get involved in the discussion. What do you think works really well? What do you think works really well? And getting everyone's thoughts and feelings, and then taking those things away and putting them into practice. And I think very much to have that open communication, to also say to them, okay, if you don't feel confident talking in the group, feel free to catch me later one-on-one, or send me a message, and give them options that they're involved in the discussion, but they might not feel comfortable at that time to speak up, but give them other options of where they can speak up, whether that be one-to-one, or maybe they want to go and speak to their supervisor. They feel more comfortable with that person. Just making sure that they have all of those areas in place. And once those discussions get going, you'll see the confidence in your team build, because they'll feel seen, they'll feel included. And then that's when you as a manager can start putting these things in place. And from there, then, if you want to invest in tools, in systems, if you want to send people on training courses, if you know you need to spend more time with other people, it's just about taking it from the small steps and doing it bit by bit, and you'll eventually get to a really good place where you have a team that is full of all different people, whether they're neurodiverse or not, and they work together as one team, and you can't see the difference because they're all included together in a nice one team, one dream. So I think starting small is the first step.
Amanda, any comments from you as well, and especially on that sort of management piece? And I don't know, hit training
Yeah,
some
I,
stuff.
I think the statistics talk for themselves. So if we're talking about 25% of people, we're talking about 25% of people that already work for you. And it's encouraging the people that already work for you to maybe come forward and be trailblazers and start to change the culture of the company. I'm quite happy putting my hand up to say, I've got difficulties with my cognitive processing and my memory, and I need to write things down, and I write things on my hand. There's also a little saying that I think sticks in people's minds, is that there's disabled people and there's people who are not disabled yet. And it can crop up at any time of your life. People who are going through menopause might have foggy brain, not be able to remember as much when they may have been absolutely snappy and on the ball before. So it's not like you need a diagnosis, you need a label, then that's it. Everybody goes through this journey. So it is just creating a culture where it's fine, let's have a conversation, let's work with it. And changing the culture of the organisation to be open about it if people want. But some people, especially apprentices, are frightened that if they come forward and talk about it, they're going to lose their job or get a label. And this is what we're encouraging, to say how common it is with learning support and have those conversations at HIT training.
Thanks, Amanda. So I'm going to turn to some questions that we've got in the Q&A. So yeah, please do keep adding them at the bottom. So first one here, what are the main keys of information or tools we must be aware of when recruiting new team members, so there is no bias or stigma? Emma, if you want to come in first, and then Amanda.
Yeah, I think with that is a really big part of it. I think maybe one of the first things you can do is look at your job descriptions and how you've written those out, and saying to yourself, does this feel very specific towards a certain person? And if you read a job description that's coming across that way, then there are going to be people who don't feel confident that they can apply for a job like that, because it seems like it's only towards a very specific type of person. I think for a lot, and I know that there are roles out there that do need to be maybe a bit more specific, but I do think you can change up your job descriptions and make them a lot more inclusive, changing up the wording of it, the roles and responsibilities, and what the expectations are. You can touch on a couple of different points within the job description to make it a lot more inclusive, and for it to read like anyone can apply for this job if they can just bring simple things to the table. And I think that could be your starting point to look at those and rejig those around so that people can feel a lot more confident to apply for the job. And then when it comes to how you interview people, you can't make an assumption. Again, as we said before, not everyone has been diagnosed. And even if they have, they might not feel comfortable to tell you that at interview stage. So again, making your interviews inclusive and not having very, very difficult questions, questions that anyone could answer and can bring their own flavor to their answers as well. And then that's how you base hiring someone. You're not being specific to who they are or what preferences they have with learning or working. You're looking at them as a human being and you are being very inclusive and you're hiring them based off of that, not based off of a very small part of them. There's a lot more to a person than if they are neurodiverse. They are an amazing human being that has loads of other amazing skills that they can bring to the table. And without having the opportunity to speak about those, they might not apply for these jobs. So I think that would be my first thought is to look at your job descriptions, look at how you are doing interviews, and just make them a lot broader and more inclusive so that more people can apply, and giving people a chance. I think there's nothing like giving someone a chance to prove themselves as well.
Thanks, Emma. Amanda, do you want to come in?
Just to add on that, it's just the idea of open days. Where are you going for your recruitment? Have you got relationships with the schools? Do you do work experience? Are you even thinking about supported internships? Is there a way that people can come in and work shadow and get the idea of what a job actually is, even before they apply it and apply to it, and just being more open and transparent about the whole recruitment process. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Amanda. So there's a question in the chat. So yeah, just as a reminder, if you can put the questions in the Q&A at the bottom, that would be helpful just so we can see them. But there's a question here in the chat about how do you create a safe space for team members to tell us what they need to support their learning needs? What should we offer as standard to create a more inclusive classroom environment? Amanda, do you want to come in first there?
I think that goes back to the working with me document and the culture. If it is apparent that there's people already working on the team who are neurodiverse, who have got reasonable adjustments, that are working in a specific way, that's going to encourage more people to come forward and express their own difficulties. It's relationships. That's the most important thing. Taking time out to talk to people, maybe after a few weeks, how's it going? Is this what you thought it would be? How is this part of the job going? And keeping those conversations alive so that it might be, after 3 months, 6 months, when somebody actually comes forward to say, actually, I didn't want to tell you this when I first, got the job, but I've got a diagnosis of autism, and actually this bit is really difficult for me. Because it is difficult to talk about because of the stigma and people worry about the consequences. So yeah, it's building that relationship is the key thing, I think.
Thanks, Amanda. Anything to add, Emma?
Not too much. I totally agree with all of that. And I think just on the relationship point is creating that open door policy and being a manager or a team lead that is just really approachable. And it's just the constant conversation. It's breaking the stigma. And it just being an open conversation, I think is really important, and that will start those discussions, and you can learn more about your team members and then provide them with what's needed. But if there isn't that open line of communication, then you won't be able to find out the details so that you can then support them. So I think the key is that open door and communication policy.
Thanks, Emma. We've also got a comment about skills for management, understanding of staff that are neurodiverse, but not heavily so. and that these are most common and often linked to RSD, which then puts a big blocker on their progress in an organisation. Just be interested to know if either of you have any comments on that, views around what businesses should be doing to support those individuals.
Please, can you tell me what RSD means?
I think it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So it's pain triggered by rejection, I believe. But if who put that comment in the chat could confirm, then that'd be helpful.
I would just like to start. So it's skills for management. We sort of covered it with the previous answer to do with relationships. And if the RSD is, as you said, right, here's my bit off-piste. Rejection syndrome disorder. I wonder whether someone in your organisation has got that. We deal with a lot of people who have got severe mental health problems, and they might have a name like that. There's also oppositional disorder, which is they just don't like to be said no. It depends very much when that assessment was taken place and what it means to the person. I would like a conversation with the person before I immediately got my hackles up and thinking, oh my God, I'm treading on eggshells here. Because through a conversation, it might actually come out that there are specific triggers and they're not actually going to come up in the work that I'm doing. It might be linked to something specific. I can't say because I would just like that discussion. A lot of young people might talk to you about ADHD because of TikTok and TikTok diagnosis. And we get a lot of this. And I always say, go to your doctors, get on the waiting list. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot more information about there, and people might be grabbing onto things. Wes Streeting was talking about it in the news yesterday about overdiagnosis. So it's the conversation, the walking through the tasks of the day. How can we work this out? How can we make that better? Is that going to trigger you? What are going to be the issues here? Because if people want to work, they want to be successful, and they want it to be a conversation. So yeah, I would just come back to the relationships piece of work.
Thanks, Amanda. Anything to add, Emma?
Yeah, I would definitely say from my experience, working in systems and specifically in training, we actually notice a lot that people hone in on employees and training employees, making sure that they have everything. And sometimes managers are forgotten about. So that was a huge initiative for us, that we ensured that within the training that we offered, that there's a full management suite of training. And again, that also covers managers who might be neurodiverse themselves, so that they can still be provided with that training in a way that works for them. And we have actually launched a couple of our bite-sized training, specifically on neurodiversity in the workplace, but also specific bite-sized training for managers as well, that covers things like having difficult conversations. And I think that kind of comes into the whole rejection piece, is how do you manage having a difficult conversation? Because it might be that they're not going to get the nicest news or feedback, but it's putting a positive spin on it. So looking at that feedback as a positive, that it is for growth and that it's not a bad thing, and that you have immediate things ready for them to support them with that feedback, that it's not just coming in with a negative conversation, because they will take that and they'll sit with it and they might take it home then. And that's really not what you're wanting. You're not wanting to add stress, especially to someone who's neurodiverse. You don't want to add to that they're already dealing with, and you want the workspace to be positive. So when you're having things like negative conversations, it's being prepared for those conversations. So providing that training for your managers is key. And as I said, that is something that we provide, but it's something that it's just up to the business to invest in managers as well and ensure that they are trained and supported to have these skills, to have these conversations, to be able to support their teams. So I think, yeah, a huge thing is just investing in your managers and not forgetting about them. We always want to train up all of our team, but sometimes managers are forgotten about. So I think it's just reminding that they need to be trained too and provided with all of these skills.
Thanks, Emma. Really helpful advice. We're coming to the end of sort of time now, last sort of 10 minutes. So if there's any final questions, please do get it in the Q&A chat. But we've got one here about how can teams effectively manage working with an owner who has ADHD, someone who thrives on juggling multiple projects but may unintentionally set unrealistic expectations? What practical strategies can be used to create a workplace culture that supports both neurodiverse leaders and their teams, preventing stress and burnout? Emma, do you want to take this one first, and then I'll come to Amanda?
I think again, the key topic that I think has touched each of these questions is just open communication, and I know that can be difficult, especially when someone is your leader. And if they set expectations and you feel like you can't reach them, your probably initial thought is, I can't say that to them. They're my boss. I have to do what they tell me to do. But it is being a team. So it is the company being aware of different people in different roles and ensuring that all of those people have a buddy within the company. So your leader might be neurodiverse and might sometimes set expectations or maybe cause a little bit of stress. But your company needs to be structured in a way that they also have other leaders that are with them, or that they have a team leader, supervisors that they work with, where they can be the voice for the team and that they can go and speak to the leader and say, okay, I really love what we're doing here, but I've gotten a little bit of feedback. And again, making it positive, not making it negative. I've got some feedback from the team. They're feeling a little bit of stress about this. My thought was that we'll still do this, but we'll do it ever so slightly different just to avoid that burnout and that stress. But I think it is having the right structure in place, because just because someone is neurodiverse and a leader doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be in that position. It just means that they need to have the right support at the right level as them. So having someone like a team lead who sits below them but helps them manage the team, and for that team lead to be that communication between the employees and the leader, it makes the team feel more comfortable that they have someone extra to speak to when they might have some difficult feedback to give. And then again, making sure that that leader or that team lead is sufficiently trained up to know then how to bring those difficult conversations in a really positive light with solutions to support that leader, because they might not be aware that it's caused stress with their team, but having that person that can help and guide them. So it's a huge structural thing to have that in place, but it doesn't mean that they are not absolutely capable of that role and brilliant at that role. I think even if you're not neurodiverse, I think we all need a little bit of support as leaders and to lean on other people that are in a leadership position and get tips and tricks of how they do things and how they work with their team. So I think it's all about supporting people in management within the company, supporting each other and having that structure laid out.
Thanks, Emma. Amanda, do you want to come in there?
Nothing more to add really on that. I was just wondering if this is, well, it sounds like it's a specific case. And I was wondering whether the manager was hands up, yeah, I've got ADHD, this is how I do things. But then it would be a conversation, yeah, but the impact of that is, and bringing it more into sort of the team outcomes instead of just an outcomes for him or her offloading and expecting everything to be done in the same way, because it's the diversity in the team. So yeah, I would be interested in to know whether this particular person was able to have a broader think around the impact of their work and how it was affecting others, really.
Thanks, Amanda. So yeah, I think we're sort of coming towards the end now. So if it's okay, Emma and Amanda, I'll hand back over to you in a minute just to give us sort of final thoughts and summary of sort of that you want to get across to people that have attended today. So yeah, Emma, if you want to go first, and then Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the key takeaway today is just to try and learn as much as you can about neurodiversity and specifically within hospitality. And as I said, there are many events happening, especially this week, but it's not just on Neurodiversity Week that these events happen. So, do some research and see what events you can join or podcasts that you can listen to. There's some amazing podcasts out there, and just educate yourself and then pass that on to your team and grow that awareness within your company, I think is the key takeaway and the first steps to creating one fluid team where everyone is included. And then from there, you can start developing and building those training paths, the needs that each team member has, and then also that open communication. But start at the beginning and just educate yourselves and get out there and see what's out there on the internet, because there's a huge amount. So that would be my key takeaway and tip as well.
Thanks, Emma. Amanda?
Just a thank you to be asked to do this presentation today. I've really enjoyed it. I don't know whether the participants on the Zoom today have a relationship with HIT training. If you want a relationship with HIT training and you want to talk about a bit more what we do, please feel free to come forward. We've got some very strong relationships with business where we work through step by step and have, as I've said, had some really fantastic outcomes with our learners. So yeah, just a big thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks again, Emma and Amanda, for your contributions today, and thanks for the questions and for everyone for joining. As I mentioned at the start, UK Hospitality is committed to neurodiversity and the sort of wider equity, diversity, and inclusion agenda. We have our own EDI group, which is made up of representatives from businesses across the sector. So if you'd like to join that group, please do get in touch and support and work with us on some of the initiatives that we're doing around neurodiversity and other inclusive practices. So yeah, if you'd like to get in touch, do get in touch with us at info@ukhospitality.org.uk. Again, this session has been recorded, so it will be up on our website. So please do share that widely with colleagues and your teams. And yeah, thank you again for joining, and I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the day.
Thank you so much.